What if everything you thought you knew about Jesus was wrong? What if the religion practiced by billions today bears little resemblance to what its founder actually taught? Prepare to journey into one of history's most controversial interpretations, a secret layer of teachings hidden beneath 2,000 years of tradition. This is the story of Gnostic Christianity, and why some scholars believe the historical Jesus taught something radically different from modern Christianity. To understand Jesus, we must first understand the world he inhabited. Rewind to approximately 1000 BCE. King David ruled over a united Israel at the height of its power, a golden age of confidence and prosperity. But after David's death, his son Solomon couldn't maintain unity. The kingdom fractured into two, the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. Geography became destiny. The Levant sat at the crossroads of empires, and both kingdoms would eventually fall to foreign conquerors. The Assyrians swept through the northern kingdom. The Babylonians crushed Judah, dragging its elite into exile. In Babylon, something remarkable happened. During this captivity, the exiled Jews developed what would become modern Judaism, forging their identity in the fires of displacement. The Persians eventually liberated the Jews, allowing them to return home and compile their sacred texts into what we know as the Hebrew Bible. But peace never lasted long. In 331 BCE, Alexander the Great's armies conquered the Persian Empire, and the region fell under Greek control. Ptolemy, one of Alexander's generals, ruled Egypt and the Levant. Unlike brutal conquerors before him, Ptolemy preferred diplomacy. He invited Jewish scholars to Alexandria to translate their Hebrew scriptures into Greek, creating the Septuagint, a translation that would later become the foundation of Christianity. Then came the Seleucid Empire in 167 BCE. Their ruler, Antiochus, wasn't interested in cultural exchange. He desecrated the Jewish temple by sacrificing a pig to Zeus within its sacred walls. This act sparked decades of guerrilla warfare. And in 63 BCE, yet another empire arrived, Rome. General Pompey besieged Jerusalem, slaughtering tens of thousands and enslaving countless others. By the time Jesus was born around 4 BCE, the Jewish people had endured centuries of conquest, humiliation, and suffering. A burning question consumed them: if they were God's chosen people, why did they suffer so much? Two explanations emerged. First, many believed they had brought this suffering upon themselves by worshiping foreign gods and disobeying divine commandments. Second, and more importantly, arose the concept of apocalyptic eschatology. Break down these Greek terms: eschaton means the end, and apocalypse means revelation or unveiling. Apocalyptic eschatology meant the revealing of how the world would end with God's triumphant return. This wasn't just theological speculation, it was the dominant worldview of first-century Judea. Most Jews believed God would soon return to destroy all empires that had defiled his name. The kingdom of heaven was imminent. Prophets roamed the countryside preaching this message, and Jesus was one of many voices proclaiming the coming transformation. But the Levant wasn't just a political crossroads, it was a philosophical and spiritual marketplace where ideas collided and merged. Jesus existed in this incredible intellectual ferment, exposed to multiple religious and philosophical traditions. From the Greeks came Platonic philosophy. Plato taught that beyond our material world existed a realm of perfect forms, emanating from the ultimate reality he called the form of the good. Our physical world was merely a shadow, an imperfect copy. Mathematics and philosophy could help humans return to this perfect realm, an idea Plato borrowed from Egyptian sacred geometry. Persian influence brought Zoroastrianism, which introduced dualism to the region. The perfect creator god Ahura Mazda made a flawless world, but an evil deity corrupted it. Humans must choose between light and darkness. Eventually, a Messiah would lead the forces of good in a final battle. The dead would be resurrected and judged, crossing a river that cleanses the righteous but burns the wicked. Buddhist and Hindu teachings also reached the Mediterranean through trade routes. These traditions spoke of Brahman, ultimate reality, contrasted with the illusory material world where suffering reigns. Through good works and dharma, one achieves moksha, liberation back into ultimate reality. The parallels with Platonism are striking. Philosophical schools flourished too. Stoicism, Cynicism, and Epicureanism offered different paths to the good life. Cynicism particularly influenced Jesus. This philosophy rejected material possessions as corrupting, advocating poverty and simplicity as paths to truth. Mystery religions and Dionysian cults practiced ecstatic rituals, sometimes involving psychedelics, to achieve unity with the divine. These ceremonies radically leveled social hierarchies. Slaves and aristocrats participated as equals, creating a sense of universal brotherhood. Into this swirling cauldron of ideas stepped Jesus, a religious genius who would synthesize these traditions into something new. According to Gnostic interpretation, Jesus founded not Christianity, but Gnosticism, and there's a crucial difference. Understanding this requires recognizing that ancient religions often operated on three levels. The outer layer consisted of public teachings accessible to everyone. The inner layer contained more advanced teachings for committed disciples. The secret layer held esoteric knowledge shared only with the closest followers. These layers didn't contradict each other, they represented different depths of the same truth. Jesus' public teaching emphasized compassion, forgiveness, mercy, and radical egalitarianism. In the Sermon on the Mount, he proclaimed, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." This comforted the suffering masses, assuring them that God favored the humble and downtrodden over the wealthy and powerful. But why would this be true? The public explanation alone seems incomplete. To understand the deeper meaning requires accessing the inner and secret layers. In 1945, in the Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi, farmers discovered ancient texts buried in a jar. Among them was the Gospel of Thomas, a collection of Jesus' sayings not included in the canonical Bible. This text reveals dimensions of Jesus' teaching that don't appear in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Consider this saying, "There is light within a person of light, and it lights up the whole world. If it does not shine, there is darkness." At the public level, this means we should be good people who perform compassionate acts. At the inner level, for disciples, it's a call to radical commitment, abandon wealth, family, everything, to follow the path of light. But the secret level reveals something far more profound, a complete cosmology, a Gnostic understanding of reality itself. In the beginning existed the monad, the one, the ultimate God, perfect and eternal like Plato's form of the good. The monad created pairs of divine beings called dyads, who together created triads. This was a perfect realm of pure spirit. But Sophia, whose name means wisdom, made a catastrophic error. She attempted to create independently, without her divine partner, without the monad's permission. Since perfection can only create perfection through proper channels, her unauthorized creation produced something flawed, a monster, though she didn't realize it. Ashamed, Sophia hid her creation in a separate, clouded reality. This creature, ignorant of the true divine realm, believed itself to be God. In its loneliness, it began creating, fashioning the material world and humanity. According to this interpretation, the God of the Hebrew Bible, Yahweh, is not the ultimate divine being, but this flawed creator. The material world, with all its suffering, death, and corruption, exists because it was fashioned by an imperfect being. This explains everything. Blessed are the poor in spirit now makes perfect sense. Succeeding in this material world requires participating in its corruption. The wealthy and powerful thrive by becoming monsters themselves. The poor, by failing to succeed materially, remain spiritually pure. But here's the hope within Gnostic teaching. Despite our creation by a flawed demiurge, we contain a divine spark from the true monad. Jesus came as an emissary from the ultimate reality to reveal this truth, that we can transcend this corrupted world by recognizing our divine nature. There is light within a person of light, and it lights up the whole world. Our bodies may be temporary and flawed, but within us burns something eternal. A perfect God wouldn't create beings destined for suffering and death. Only an imperfect creator would build such a world. But by awakening to the divine spark within, by pursuing true knowledge, gnosis, we can escape. Another saying from Thomas illuminates this: when you make the two one, when you make the inside like the outside and the outside like the inside, and the above like the below, And when you make the male and the female one and the same, so that the male not be male nor the female female, then will you enter the kingdom. The categories dividing us, rich and poor, male and female, insider and outsider, are constructs of this false reality. True liberation comes from recognizing our fundamental interconnectedness, seeing through material illusions to the unified divine essence beneath. When we develop true vision, seeing with the soul rather than merely with physical eyes, we perceive reality as it truly is. Eventually, Jesus traveled to Jerusalem, the religious heart of Judaism. If you want your message heard, you go to the capital. But this was dangerous. The Romans executed prophets they considered troublemakers. Religious authorities, the Sadducees, Pharisees, and Essenes, saw Jesus as a threat to their power. Without political protection, Jesus was vulnerable. The Romans arrested and crucified him, intending to silence a troublesome prophet. But they achieved the opposite. In an age expecting apocalyptic revelation, Jesus' dramatic death transformed him into a hero. His execution served as proof the authorities feared his truth enough to kill him. People became fascinated with his teachings. Moreover, death itself had positive meaning in Gnostic thought. Dying meant escaping the material prison, returning to true reality. Jesus' death demonstrated ultimate commitment to his teaching. It awakened people, commanding their attention and inspiring them to investigate what he actually said. So if this was Jesus' teaching, that divinity resides within each person as a spark waiting to be recognized, that liberation comes through knowledge rather than faith, that the material world is a flawed creation we must transcend, how did we get modern Christianity? How did a religion focused on discovering your inner divine nature become a religion about worshiping Jesus as the sole Redeemer? How did teachings about awakening to Gnosis transform into doctrines about salvation through Jesus' sacrifice? The answer lies not with Jesus, but with another figure, Paul of Tarsus. Paul never met the living Jesus. Yet Paul created what we now call Christianity, a religion about Jesus rather than the religion of Jesus. If the historical Jesus encountered modern Christianity, according to this interpretation, he would be shocked and dismayed by how profoundly his teachings had been transformed. The religion about Jesus became something radically different from what Jesus himself taught. Understanding this distinction reveals one of history's most dramatic transformations and one of its most controversial questions.